Hi everyone. So, Daddy Sib here. I want to talk about TV shows. See, when I was growing up, TV was great. It was fantastic, actually. Hong Kong Phooey, greatest cartoon ever. Then you had Scooby Doo. You had Bugs Bunny. You get home from school, you had the Brady Bunch. Okay? I can't tell you how excited I was to get home from school and watch the Brady Bunch. I don't know, 8 years old. So I was born in 1970. Brady Bunch was on from 69 to like 74, and then it went off. But then it stayed on, of course, after that. But you had the Brady Bunch. You had Aquaman. Aquaman was awesome. You had
They're
Spider-Man.
making a new Aquaman this year.
They are?
What's an Aquaman?
Aquaman was
it's a
an
man in the
awesome
ocean.
show that Daddy
Aqua is like water.
watched.
So he would be in water.
Okay, so you get home from school. You got the Brady Bunch at 4 o'clock. Now, things did kind of stink that, first of all, there were no remotes. That was really hard. No remotes. Second, you
Wait,
only
but
had
here's a button on the TV.
no buttons on the TV. TVs had a dial. And you had 3 channels on VHF, and I think it was 2 or 3 channels on UHF. So you had to choose what frequency you wanted. I think it was called VHF. So you had 3, 6, and 10. NBC, ABC, CBS. That's it. You had no remote. You had to watch every commercial. There was no fast forward,
Like
pause.
We have to watch.
You couldn't record. You had to be in front of the TV when your show came on, or you missed it. No recording. Now we're talking early 70s here. 73. Well, I was 8 years old. 78. The first thing that came out to record. Anybody know what was the very first technology that came out to record TV shows?
Camera.
That's right, a VCR.
A tape.
VCR. Mommy
tape.
said it.
A tape.
No, that doesn't record.
VCRs. So all of a sudden, right around 1980,
No, a tape.
this
recorder.
amazing technology came
The
out
whole
called a VCR, and it took the world by storm. Everybody had to go out and get a VCR, and you got these big black tapes. They were called a VCR tape, and they were big boxes.
I thought tapes were a camera.
They were called a tape. Yeah, then you had to fight for the TV. So and the great thing was is you could set the alarm, the recording time. So if you go to somewhere and you set your VCR for 8 o'clock, you can go out and record it, watch it when you get home. You can fast forward through the commercials. The world was going crazy. I mean, everybody went nuts with VCRs. It was just incredible.
Angel.
Well, of course you would know.
So life was starting to get better in the 70s. Then all of a sudden, well, just before that, another amazing invention came out. Might have been at the same time of the VCR, the microwave. Oh, the microwave. It was sensational. See, back in my day, if you wanted to eat something after and heat it up, you had to wait for the stove. It took forever. You couldn't just heat something up real quick. It took an hour. Some genius invented the microwave, and life is fantastic.
Oh my god.
We're talking right about 1980. I was 10 years old, so you got the VCR, you got the microwave,
You got the
and
computer.
then no computers yet. I mean, they were out, possible, but just not in the households. Then, the next technology that came out was boombox. No, the cassette tape. The cassette tape. So, well, it kind of was the boombox. So next thing I know, this thing called a cassette tape comes out. So now, like the VCR, we could record off of the radio. It was incredible. If your song came on, you push play and record. And it was amazing. You could record your songs now. Instead of going out and having to buy a record.
Need to make it like the olden
Oh, you had to buy
days.
records. You had to get a record player. And there were two types of records. Who knows the two numbers, the two sizes?
Small and big.
Yeah, one was small, one was big.
Small and big.
If you wanted to listen to music back in the 70s, there were two ways other than an 8-track tape, which was really old.
Rewind.
8-track tapes were the first ones to come out. So they were kind of like a VCR for music, and you could put them in the cars. But after that, you had your cassette tapes. Push play and record, and you could record your own voice, too, and the radio.
Yeah, you could make love tapes to your friends.
Oh, and you could skip through all the commercials. Life was wonderful.
You could make a tape for your sweetheart.
That's right. So you're talking right around 1980. And then something came out that blew the world by storm again. Right around 1980, I'll never forget Atari. Atari video games. Now, instead of having to go to the store and spend a quarter on a game, it was beautiful. You had your own gaming console right there in your house. I'll never forget, we got the first 3 games was bowling, Space Invaders, and football. Now you want to hear about the graphics on the football for Atari, because this is hilarious.
Oh my gosh.
Each team had 3 little robots that looked like Space Invaders. And they all moved simultaneously, left, right, up or down. They moved like they were all stuck together. And that was your football team. Space Invaders was one of the greatest games, it still should be, ever created in the history of mankind.
Is that the triangle, I think?
No, well, they got these 3 little barricades, and then all these little
They
ants
make it
march
like
across
the
the board, and
olden
then when they get to the other
days
side, they drop
again.
down a row.
Okay.
And then they all march to the other side, they drop down a row.
What is the
Back
thing
off that.
that you shoot from the bottom?
Yeah, that's Space Invaders. You're down bottom, you shoot up.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you're talking about the same thing here. So life started to get good in the 80s. It really did. As technology evolved, things started to get better. And then, after everybody got Atari and they were happy, that really put an end to the arcade games. Because arcade games were huge. You go to the store with a pocket full of quarters, and you're good for the whole night. Play your favorite games. The great thing about arcade games is that you got to stay on a machine for 1 quarter, no matter how good you were. You had to be good. So if you were good, you got rewarded for being good. You get to play for an hour on 1 quarter. So it was awesome. 1 quarter could last you a full hour, you know. And then they got greedy. Like right around 1982, 83, they started to get greedy. They wanted 50 cents a game. It killed the arcade industry. Nobody could afford to sit there and get addicted to a game that cost
Now
50
it's
cents.
$1.
Now they're $1 and some are $2. It's ridiculous. There's no even reason to spend that on a... If you can afford that, it's ridiculous. With all the gaming consoles out there, you don't need to do it. So,
Here's some fan mail if you guys want to see. My eyes are so weird.
They're in the water.
okay.
Nobody
Back,
picked them up.
back to work. Back to work.
See if there's anything in your.
So.
See if there's any in your.
Oh, that's creepy looking.
See if there's any in mommy's.
And then I
Or
remember
in your room.
something that came out right around 1981
There's none in your room.
was these things called laser
There's none
discs.
in your room.
They were these big boxes about a foot high and a foot wide, and they were these big discs, and each disc was one movie. And you had this machine, and you inserted the disc, this big long tray, and that was your movie. So that didn't work out too well. We only had a couple of those. I remember we had Escape from New York and Aliens. They're the only two I remember. And you put this gigantic, it was bigger than a plate. It was ridiculous. The discs. And then HBO came out. Then HBO. And we were like, wow, cable TV. Awesome. Now we could watch movies without having to go to the theater. Without having to buy one of these ridiculous long big discs.
That's why most of our movies that were created back then, in the car, we have to skip forward the intermission part in one of the movies because one of them has an intermission because you could only watch it in movie theaters. So they
Right.
made an intermission part, it literally said intermission in English and then in French. You had to wait 5 minutes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Where was this?
In one of the movies.
Oh,
Am I allowed to say it or will I get copyrighted?
you'll get copyrighted.
Okay.
But yeah, so it was life in the 70s, guys. Life in the 70s was way different than it is now. Back then, parents could hit kids. If you were bad, you got your butt whooped. Parents would just take off their belt. Man, my
But
behind
my
got
pants
whipped
fell
so many
down.
times.
When they told me.
Oh, I'll tell you one story. So, me and my genius stepbrother, we must have been about 8 years old. We decided that we were going to go around the neighborhood and change everybody's address. We went to each house, each mailbox, and moved all the numbers around. We wanted to confuse the mailman. And we probably did. But it didn't confuse our parents because my mom found out and my stepdad, and man, they went to town on our behinds. Back in the 70s, you got whipped.
I don't get whipped. I get star taken whipped, which don't offend me at all. I mean,
You go upstairs, let's go, and the belt comes off as you're walking up. That was the worst part. The walking up the stairs was way worse than getting hit. It was worse because you knew you were going to have so much pain coming that you were like walking to your death going up those stairs. You just wanted to run and hide and butt whoopings were the worst. That belt comes off.
and then their pants fall down.
Now sometimes if you weren't too bad, the parents would let you keep your pants on when you got whipped. But if you were bad, you had to go no pants, leather on skin, and that hurt. It really hurt. It left welts. It left bruises.
What?
Today,
Not to talk about it, Dad.
don't listen to her. Today, that doesn't go on. CPA and
Don't
child's
talk about
rights
it,
and
Dad.
activists. None of that goes on today. Today, if you try to touch a child like that, the police will be knocking on your door. Seriously. Yeah, you hardly ever see that, especially in public. I rarely see a parent hit a child in public. Maybe a hand slap, something like that. But
Where's yours?
boy, we got. And you know what? My brother, my poor brother.
My what?
He was 4 years older than me.
My,
And my stepdad used to take a big
my what?
wooden spoon. Bang! Right on your hand. If you weren't too bad, you got to hold your hand this way.
I
If you
must
were
have
bad,
left it.
turn it over.
Yeah, it's probably at my desk.
Whack! Whack! One time he hit my brother so hard, the spoon broke. Just broke. And I was watching. I was like, you know what? I think I didn't remember it once, but only once. I was so terrified of the spoon. I would have rather had the belt any day. The spoon, man, that looked painful, and I never want that. I don't think I ever got it on the knuckles, but I did get it on the palms once. But you know what? After all that hitting by parents, it didn't do any good. It didn't stop us from being bad. we still did the same stupid things. So for parents out there that think hitting is the answer, it's not. It really isn't. You know, my brother still did the same old crazy things no matter how much we got hit. It didn't teach us a lesson. It just taught you to be sneakier and not get caught. But we didn't stop doing the crazy things. No. So that was life in the 70s, guys. And Ellie, I was glad you're here to hear some of those stories.
I've already heard some of them. Tell them the one where you was, Uncle Steve, Uncle Steve, you put like layers of underwear.
Okay, so what she's referring to is a butt whooping. My brother outsmarted my stepdad once, and he put extra padding in his pants, in his underwear. I think he shoved some socks down there, maybe a pair of underwear. He made it look good, and he really acted it out. I knew what was down there, and I'm watching, and he's, ow, ow. But really, it wasn't hurting at all because he was laughing afterwards. So then I tried it. Now I'm 4 years younger. I come out, and my butt looked like J-Lo, all right, when it was time for me to get hit. And that made it worse because my stepdad was going to let me have my pants on, but because I tried to trick him, he made me take them off, and leather to the skin, and didn't work out too well. So that was that story, but many butt warmers. But we're going to stop here for today with Life in the 70s with Daddy Sib. Comment down below. Tell me how your parents chastise you. And tell me, go ask your parents and ask them, how did they get chastised by their parents? I'd like to hear. Thanks, everybody. Say bye-bye.